Unlock the secrets of boarding school history. Did you know boarding schools have roots in ancient Greece? Monks and philosophers started it all. British public schools shaped character and empire. Now diversity and well-being are key. Modern boarding schools blend tradition with tech. Discover a world of learning and growth. Section 1. The history and evolution of boarding education. Boarding education has been around for a long time, much longer than most people think. Long before we used the term boarding school, there were residential learning communities helping shape young minds all over the world. In ancient Greece, for example, young men lived and studied together under philosophers. Similar traditions also existed in ancient China and India, where elite education often meant living and learning in the same place. But the clearest roots of modern boarding schools come from medieval Europe. During the Middle Ages, cathedral and monastic schools offered education to boys, often preparing them for roles in the church. These schools provided both academic instruction and residential care, laying the foundation for the boarding school model we know today. By the time of the Renaissance, boarding education had grown beyond religious training. It became a way to educate the nobility and the rising merchant class, with a strong focus on leadership and civic responsibility. In the 18th and 19th centuries, boarding schools, especially in Britain, really took off. Despite the name, public schools were actually private and quite exclusive. They were known for preparing the sons of the upper and middle classes, emphasizing discipline, character and leadership, especially in service to the British Empire. As the British Empire expanded, so did its school model, spreading to countries across the Commonwealth. At the same time, other countries developed their own systems, like the French lycée and the American prep school. The 20th century brought big changes to boarding education. Girls were gradually admitted. Student bodies became more diverse. Harsh discipline gave way to more compassionate approaches. And the focus shifted toward well-being, mental health, and more modern teaching methods. Today's boarding schools are a mix of tradition and innovation. They still carry elements of their long history, but they've evolved to meet the needs of students in a fast-changing world. Let's take a quick walk through the key stages in the evolution of boarding education. It all begins in ancient times, with residential learning communities in places like Greece, Rome, China, and India. Students lived where they learned, often under the guidance of philosophers, scholars, or spiritual leaders. Then came the medieval period, when monastic and cathedral schools started to take shape in Europe. These institutions introduced a more formal model of boarding education, combining learning with structured residential life. During the Renaissance and Enlightenment, boarding schools began to move beyond religious training. They started serving the children of nobility and the growing merchant class, focusing more on leadership, language, and the arts. In the Victorian era, British public schools, elite, fee-paying institutions, became well-established and spread around the globe. They emphasized discipline, character, and service, especially in the context of empire. The early 20th century brought reforms. Schools began to move away from harsh conditions, with growing efforts to make education more accessible and humane. By the mid-20th century, boarding schools were becoming more inclusive, welcoming students from more diverse backgrounds and walks of life. In the late 20th century, there was a shift in focus. Pastoral care and student well-being took center stage, with more emphasis on emotional support and personal development. And in the 21st century, boarding schools continue to evolve. Technology, global awareness, and student-centered learning now help shape a modern, forward-looking boarding experience.